Thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Off the Clock with Mo. But this segment of it is what's the deal with deal, and this deal, it's like a bittersweet deal, because this deal here, you know, it had a sweet taste, but a nasty aftertaste though. With those Detroit Pistons going losing 4 games to 2 to the Knicks. Now, don't get me wrong, Detroit came through in the beginning of the season, with that stigma of being the worst team last season, being one of the worst teams ever, in NBA history, just to turn it around. And not just turn it around, but get, you know, triple the wins from last season, this season, breaking the record, and just that alone. And then, getting in the playoffs and not even having to play in the play-in. They literally um, had a spot in the playoffs where they got a chance to wait on everybody else to get done. The other teams playing the play-ins to get done. So Detroit they made a hell of a run. They had a hell of a turnaround this past season. Um, you can't help but take your hat off to them. But I don't really care for moral victories. I don't really believe in moral victories like that. Because in this case, I don't believe it's necessarily a moral victory, but it was hard fought. They won in so many different ways. They won by making the playoff. They won by winning 3 times as many games last season, this season, sneaking up on people, just knocking them out. Just knocking one win after another win after another win. I think their longest win streak may have been something like 10 games or something like that, for this past season. But when you come into the playoffs, the playoffs is a different beast. The playoffs is you're not gonna necessarily see them 125, 135, 140, 150 games. Them games gonna barely be in the hundreds, and Detroit gave New York a run for their money. I believe they could have beat New York. The only thing New York had on Detroit was experience. That's the only thing they had. They had playoff experience, because Detroit just couldn't close them out. Because Detroit would go on these big runs, leading, end up taking the lead in the third quarter, coming to the fourth quarter with a pretty big lead, and didn't know how to finish. And New York with that experience with a Brunson, with a Cat, even though I believe Cat is soft, and don't let me forget, Isaiah Stewart didn't play, in that series either. I think he would have been a big difference, but that's neither here nor there. We don't know that for sure. All we do know is Detroit lost 4 games to 2, but they got a real bright future ahead of them. As long as they can keep that, their core players intact. I know, we all know they're gonna lose some players, but you do want to try to keep your core team intact. Oh, don't let me forget either. Jaden Ivey didn't play. He missed damn near more than half the season. But the core players they had to keep, of course, Cade, Jalen Duran, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway. I don't know. Tim Hardaway is more of a journeyman, but he could. I mean, he is kind of recognized as part of the core, but I'm not sure depending on what they would get if they would truly miss him, like they would miss a Cade or Jalen Duran or Malik Beasley or Jaden Ivey, you know, Isaiah Big Beef Stewart, Asar Thompson. You try to keep them intact, but I'm sure they're gonna want to try to bring in somebody, you know, and if you're gonna make a move, somebody gotta go. You can't keep the whole team. Somebody gotta go if you're gonna try to make a move, or you may just say, fuck it. We're gonna go what we got. You know what I'm saying? May add one more player here or one more player there, but for the most part, we're gonna go with what we had last year and build on that. But I believe the Pistons got a bright future ahead of them. But I truly believe that the Pistons could have, because they was winning big in some of these games. I really do believe that they could have beat New York. Now, had they played Boston, I don't know. But then again, shit. Detroit sports, Detroit teams, Detroit Pistons are known for slaying dragons. You had the bad boys, took out Jordan, Magic, Larry Bird, Dominique Wilkins. Don't forget about Dominique Wilkins in Atlanta back in the day. You know, um, and them bad boys was beating them players at in their prime. You know, the Pistons beat, like Isaiah Thomas said once before, beat the Chicago Bulls, beat Boston, beat LA. Then you had the boys in 2004 going to work. Shit, dismantled the Lakers. Shit, they beat the Lakers 4 games to 1, and after that series there, it wasn't no more Shaq. It wasn't no more Kobe together. They broke up that duel. So I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised that this team done it too, because this team had that same type of grit, that same type of toughness, that same type of dog. The coach represent the players represent the coach. They got some dog in them. They ain't the pushovers no more. The Pistons not a team that the other team star players sit out that game. All of a sudden now they sick. Nah, when the Pistons come in now, shit, that star player got to suck it up, get out there. If not, he's gonna get his ass. They're gonna get their ass whooped. So I believe that the Pistons have a great future. I'm gonna take a toast to that, to the Pistons' bright future. And to touch a little bit even on baseball this year. After the Tigers snuck up in the playoffs last season and won a playoff series and got a Cy Young award winning pitcher and Scuba. Right now they got a franchise record of what, 19 wins. To begin the season, 19 or 20 wins to begin the season. The Tigers are hot. Detroit is back to that city of champions. You got the Pistons to look forward to. You got the Tigers that's on the run right now. I mean, you got the Lions. Everybody can't wait to the new season, start to see what we look like. You know what I'm saying? Detroit sports is back. We back, and we got something to say. You know what I'm saying? We get it like our hometown. We get it out the mud. We got that grit. We got that dog. We got whatever you looking for. We want all that smoke. We're saying we gonna take that smoke. Detroit sports is back. That's why they used to call Detroit the city of champions, because that's all the city of Detroit did in sports was win championships with the Lions and the Tigers and the Red Wings, and the Lions before in the 50s. Detroit used to be known, but Detroit sports is coming back up. I know I spoke on this once before, but I want to come on here and talk about the Pistons getting knocked out by the Knicks. The Pistons, this loss right here teaches you experience. You get that experience. You get to know how to play in the playoffs, to recognize the differences in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Then you're gonna start getting some of them calls that Brunson was getting, even though he was flopping his ass off. That motherfucker Brunson was flopping his ass off. And how the referees don't know, who knows? But when you get that experience, you know how to do little shit like that. You know little tricks of the trade to the game. And that's just what he exposed, little tricks of trades to the game that the Pistons just couldn't, fathom and get over, and would just fall apart in the fourth quarter. And then Brunson would just go off. He'll be in check all game. Come that fourth quarter, shit, Pistons done dropped the lead. He done caught fire. But like I said, we got a bright future ahead, for the Pistons. I believe that the Pistons is going to be, a team to reckon with. That's going to be up there in the East, once again, with that fight in them, with that dog in them, with that beast in them, bringing back the bad boys, going back to work again, putting their thumbprint, on the LCA, because before you had the bad boys had the Silver Dome, and then won 2 championships at the Palace. The going to work crew with Ben Wallace, Sheed, Chauncey, Rip, at the Palace, and now you got this group right here, at the LCA, the Little Caesars Arena. So we get ready for us. America got to get ready for us. The nation got to get ready for us. We back on that map again, and we ain't doing it like everybody else does it. We going out there baring our teeth, with our ears pointing backwards. You know what I'm saying? We want that fight. We want that smoke. We coming, and just that experience right there is a lesson learned. Is a total lesson learned. And one of the big things I got out of that series, Cade Cunningham had 32 turnovers in that series. And you can't win games with turnovers in the playoffs. Every possession in the playoffs is important. Every possession in the playoffs is important. And you can try to fight back from them turnovers, but eventually them turnovers is going to win and you're going to lose. Cade can't go on having 32 turnovers like that. You know what I'm saying? You can't win no playoff series with 32 turnovers because shit, it ain't no tomorrow. You an eliminating game, ain't no tomorrow. You can't turn it over like that. So that's my little spiel on what's the deal with deal. I appreciate everybody watching these episodes. Giving me the likes. Subscribing, commenting. I really appreciate everybody's participation that's done came on off the clock with Mo. There's no way on God's green earth that I could ever pull off a podcast without no support. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate all the support that I've gotten from everyone. So I'm about to sign off with what's the deal with deal. Thank you.